So, Aaron, thank you for taking the time to share your insights with the Booth Besties. And we're just going to jump right in with tell us a little bit about you and who you are, like the Cliffs Notes version.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Alicia. I really appreciate it. So my name is Aaron Willis. I am a golly, it 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 stings to kind of say this, but a 25-year industry veteran at this point. And I've done kind of all different kinds of work. Started in production for custom audio and library music for like radio, television, and film. While I was there, we did a lot of, I would say, industrial projects for voiceover.
Hmm.
That was kind of like we kind of doubled the studio as a working studio, and then we would do a lot of composition in our off times, kind of a thing. And I've done various radio ads, ad campaigns along the way. I've made a lot of friends in the anime voice acting industry just because of my proximity to Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the area that I'm at. And then, yeah, I have recently delved back into kind of the independent audiobook world that exists on TikTok, which is really cool. I've done two different author read audiobooks for major publishing houses. But those are just author reads, no multicast, no sound effects or anything fun or interesting like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've kind of done it all, including live sound, audio post for video. It's just one of those things where you have to kind of shape shift to survive in this industry and do what you do. So,
I love that. That's true. You do have to shape shift. So tell us, how long have you been making demos?
I mean, I've been making demos for various disciplines for, I mean, probably close to 20 years. I focused on a lot of radio, voiceover and imaging projects for people that we had in our area, people that we knew that we pulled into the studio to do projects and kind of helped them with a step up. And then as we were hiring outside talent, people coming in and doing, I mean, all kinds of demos at that point. When we were at the studio, we were doing musical demos and voiceover demos, and just again, it was kind of whatever we did. I've had a fair amount of time off from being in the live recording industry and the video post for audio, but even in that, you've got things like ADR. You're doing so many types of work and flexing those skills in particular ways. And so, yeah, it started back then, and there have been my sporadic forays into multiple different industries, but yeah, it's been upward of 20 years. So I need a nap now that I say
Yeah.
that. I'm old.
I'm right there with you. So what genres of demos do you produce?
So I would say I'm pretty adept to anything if I have the specs. I've worked in a breadth of different industries. Lately, what I've been seeing mostly is commercial demo work and kind of anime and character demos.
Mhm.
That's primarily what I do, but like I said, I've really been getting into the audiobook industry, and I think that there's a lot of interesting, kind of an interesting collection of opportunities there as well that I didn't know existed, like it does in commercial. And commercial has all of its subdivisions. If you need something specific where you're going after pharma, or you're going after radio imaging, or I've produced kind of targeted demos, I would say, to go after like a particular client or a campaign,
Mhm.
to do voiceovers, to kind of angle for longer term gigs where you're the voice of something for a set amount of time. So just kind of a mixture like that. But yeah, a lot of commercial and character.
So, do you feel like it's important for demo producers to niche down to have like where they really focus their efforts or just be a jack of all trades?
Um, wow, I think that there's a lot of benefit to being very niched down in certain industries. Like radio imaging is one of those that I think if you're really niched down in it, it's like when I do a radio ID demo. Like I said, I'm adept at uh, manufacturing those type of production styles, even though I don't work for a radio station and I'm not constantly cutting audio out of an Inco and putting it together and and
Mhm.
getting it into into the ad system and all that kind of good stuff. But at the same time, you're so much more aware of the trends that are happening in that world that I think it really depends on the genre that you're going into. I do think, because I'm a jack of all trades, I will say, I think that it's good to have a jack of all trades if you're going for a broader demo. If you want a really wide commercial demo that might include, some other elements, because we have so much bleed over now in the commercial world between what I would have considered radio imaging 10 years ago to what is now like Spotify ads. So it doesn't really fit the traditional radio imaging mold, but Spotify is imaging for itself internally. So there's all these different opportunities that just kind of manifest out in the world that you're never really expecting. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, if you're going for a broader demo where you're going to hit, um, where you're going to be doing retail, food and beverage, those kind of ads where you're going to smash 4 or 5 different kinds of commercials into one commercial demo, I think it helps to be a little bit broader. But again,
So to that point, what role do you think a demo plays in 2024 for a talent? Is it just for marketing? Are they using it to secure agents? Like, where do you see the role of a demo?
I mean, I definitely think in my world, a demo kind of helps make those connections everywhere. I definitely see it as a kind of a pivotal step to having an agent. And you definitely need multiple demos, probably if you're out there, angling for that kind of stuff. I know, like casting directors in the anime industry, they're getting auditions, but they're also going to your website. They're looking at your demos and not just your character demos, because television shows like that, they might have a lot of big outlandish characters, but they also might have, very reserved side characters. You might be doing like uh, the voice of a computer interface, and so
Mhm.
if you have e-learning demos out there, you just never know what that demo is going to land you. You don't know if it's a job, if it's a casting, if it's an agent. I think it just helps to get your voice out there in as many ways as you feel like you're excelling at doing it. So
Okay. So, what criteria does a talent have to meet before you will make a demo for them? Do you have any specific criteria? And as part of that, do you evaluate their studio first?
um again, it depends on the industry. But yes, if I'm doing something for like commercial or for character animation, yeah, we kind of need to vet the studio, just because we're going to be doing a variety of voices, and character demos might involve a lot of yelling. And so even if you're using like a dynamic mic like I'm using now and you're close to it, if you back up to yell, you'll hear a lot more room. So I need to make sure that I'm not going to hear that room. So I am visiting or vetting them, excuse me, from a technical and acoustic standpoint. But I really think, when somebody comes to me, they should have an idea of where they want to go.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing to me, because when people say, "Can you make me a demo?" Yes. What does that mean to you? I know what it means to me in these specific industries, but I don't know you yet. And that's kind of a big deal, of getting to know who I'm going to be producing the demo for. What do they feel like they're good at? What do they feel like they're not good at? Just because your voice isn't like high pitched and energetic, doesn't mean that you won't get picked for a character demo. Just because your voice is maybe bigger and fuller, doesn't mean that you have to be confined to commercial. And knowing how to kind of help the talent get the best end result for them, that's really my prerequisite. And that just takes talking and figuring stuff out. If they have examples that they've brought of other demos that they really like, that's usually super helpful. And I in turn have kind of a stable of demos that I've done, as well as demos that some people that I know or some people that I don't even know have done, and just said, hey, is this kind of what you're thinking? So
Okay. So tell us about your production process from start to finish. Someone like I come to you and say, I'm looking to make a commercial demo. What would that process look like?
So the process would be, first of all, we would sit down and talk, and like I said, I'd probably talk to you and kind of have you read some prepped scripts on our first call, just to let me hear kind of how are you going to interpret if I hand you a medical script? How am I going to, like, what will it sound like to you if I just say, hey, this advertisement is for Wranglers, and I don't
Hmm.
give you any more direction than that? Because sometimes it can help me find what's going to be the most effective and efficient for them. But at the end of the day, again, my goal is to be as effectively transparent as possible, right? It's not the demo of my production skills. It's the demo of your voice, and making sure that we're doing everything to meet that voice in the space that you want to go. That's where I come in and help. But yeah, really, it is about finding out what's going to suit them best and make sure that I give that to them to shine them in the best light. And just because we don't hit a particular thing doesn't mean that that usage doesn't exist out there for you,
Yeah.
because if a casting director or an ad agency hears your demo and they're like, hey, this is great, we want to put her in X ad that wasn't represented in your demo, they'll still do that. It's really
Hmm.
about making you shine in the best light possible. So
So somebody comes to you, they work it out. What comes next? Do you write scripts or do you use existing ad
yeah, for
copy?
no, I try not to use existing ad copy, just because it doesn't take that long to come up with scripts for a lot of this stuff, and having done it before, you just kind of get in the writing mode. So yeah, I guess I didn't speak enough to the full process. So let me dig into that a little bit further. Thank you for clarifying. So yeah, after our initial meeting and we figure out like what we're going to do for your commercial demo, I go back and I start writing copy, because let's say we're tackling food and beverage, right?
Hmm.
So that side of retail where maybe you're selling soda, maybe you're selling hard liquor, maybe you're selling, 2-for-1 ribeyes at the deli. It's just kind of a wide breadth there. And so listening to their voice, if it's particularly big and robust and smoky, we're going to write a script to match that, right? We're going to give you a bourbon ad, or we'll come up with some hypothetical product that you can do. Everything is hard seltzers right now, by the way. Your script is gonna have hard seltzer in it, apparently, because it's it's everywhere. So we'd go through and we would write the scripts. I don't do a lot of the production until after we've recorded. So after I give you the scripts, you've read through them, you're comfortable with them, we'll get you in for a remote session. And I will connect you into my DAW. I'll record you directly here. If you would prefer, you can record on your own. I'd prefer to be on a video call so I can actually direct you. Usually it saves time. And also, I think it's really good practice for maybe some people who haven't been in a remote session. It's really good practice to not have to self-direct. And if you're doing a demo, I would really suggest that you don't self-direct. I've done that one time with a very talented voice actress, and I just had to tell her what to do. She just needed an updated demo.
Hmm.
But for the most part, it is good to have that sounding board right when you're recording. We can fix a lot of things, and sometimes being on there and talking things out with you will inform my later decisions. Then I essentially go into the production phase, and I'm compiling all the ads, and then I send them again to you, and we talk about timing and pacing of the demo, and making sure that you're happy with the choices I made. We normally do 3 to 4 more vignettes than we'll actually use,
Right.
just so we have stuff that we can move around. And also, if in the future one of those vignettes becomes particularly beneficial to you, you can take it and be like, well, we didn't put this in the demo, but here's me doing e-learning, or here's me doing IP telephony, or whatever it is, which those
Good
are
sample.
completely, yeah, it's completely separate verticals, but I digress. But yeah, so we're trying to make you the punchiest demo we can in the time frame. That's really the goal. So
Okay. So, outside of demo producing, do you coach?
I don't. I don't really consider myself a coach. I'm more of a cheerleader kind of a person. So I will find like the good things and help accentuate those. A lot of times I'm not just going to be like, don't do this thing, but also that's kind of because of my years of experience as well. Like I don't know what somebody's going to pick you for,
Mhm.
and that's why I think it's so valuable to do those demos that you might not be interested in right off the bat. Hit those verticals that you might not have thought about or might not be your number one choice, because you don't know what you'll get picked for. So
Okay. So, if you have somebody who comes to you and they haven't had any coaching, do you have like a list of coaches you recommend to them, or do you just say, kind of come back to me when you found some coaching or?
Uh, if it's a world that I have been working in a lot currently, I normally have people that I can hand them off to.
Mhm.
If I feel like they're not ready for whatever reason, at that point I would kind of step in and try to help them find somebody. If it was outside of a normal vertical for me, I would try to help them find somebody that would fit them well. So I would kind of stay in that process. I wouldn't just be like, come back to me. Come back to me when you've got all this sorted out. It's kind of more of a partnership than that, I would say. So yeah, I would try to help them find coaching. But so much of the time, once we're in there and once we kind of compare and we talk, a lot of times, if you're in this world, you can hear it. Like you can hear it in your ears. And it's so rare that I get somebody on the end of a remote session that is not self-directing in the moment when you start saying and it comes out. And a lot of times I do just like to encourage that, because those are the same decisions that you're going to be making when you're cutting auditions for commercials. You will be self-directing those unless
Yeah.
you're extremely lucky. So maybe in that sense I'm coaching people to maybe help build their own intellect and their own intuition in that, but I would not call myself a coach really.
Okay. So let's see. Are you open to collaborating with talent? So if talent comes to you and they're like, I've written all my scripts, I know how I want them to sound, and I just need somebody to, and I've already recorded them. They're bringing you dry audio, raw, and they just want you to produce it. Is that something that you would be willing to collaborate on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love doing collaborations because that also will keep you from having a particular stamp of me necessarily on your demo. If I'm generating the ideas and then I carry that through to the production side, there's kind of a consistent vision there. I kind of have a kind of a sound or a language when I do things, especially with pacing and stuff like that. And so I always like collaborating with people that are passionate about doing that kind of stuff as well. And again, I encourage you to do that. If you have an inkling, do as much for yourself that you enjoy, I would say.
Oh, I like
But
that.
yeah, once it starts getting arduous, that's a good time to start looking for a partner that is particularly wired to do that kind of work. But I love collaboration. It's always just a fun and different experience.
Beautiful. So, can you tell me, in the time that you've been producing demos or kind of working in this world, what shifts have you seen regarding industry standards around demos?
I would say kind of the biggest shift over time is that back when I started, I felt like there was a lot more like siloed people. So in the radio world, you would have your radio VO talent, but 20 years ago, radio had a different sound than it does today. Um, Back then everybody would have their big DJ voice on. That was really what you did in the early 2000s, all the way back into the late mid to late 90s. It was either big, or then it shifted to being really aggressive and this is our sound. And now it's like this same kind of like low key vocal fry, what started out, forgive me, as in the industry being called like the disaffected millennial sound, which was always like, no, that's not what that sounds like. But you know, just that very low key read, you're
Mhm.
starting to hear that more in the radio world. And I think we as people are always kind of looking to identify ourselves. So I see a lot more of that, just like uh I would say kind of a more authentic voice, but you know how much work you do to do those authentic
Yeah.
voices.
Yeah.
We've got to manufacture those authentic voices perfectly.
Yes.
It's a skill set for sure. So I think I've seen a lot more shift into there being a wider variety, especially like in radio. But I also see that like I don't just find people who are just radio or only commercial anymore. I
Yeah.
see a lot more diversification. And like I never in my time back then, I never would have expected to go onto like a radio ID guy's website and see an audiobook narration demo. Never. I never would have seen it. Maybe he had a separate site for it back then, but you know, it's stuff like that where I see that diversification, that spreading out. And I think that that's really, really, really good, because decisions you make in one area will inform decisions that you make in others. And that's what makes you a unique artist, right? Is spreading out and putting your handprints all over everything and making it yours. So those are the two like biggest trends that I've seen is really just kind of diversification.
Yeah. So when has it always been the standard in a demo to have kind of this mock work, or do you feel like that's a transition? As you've been in the industry long enough, has it always been like we create this thing that's not work we've actually done, but work we could do?
Yeah, I mean that always kind of separated the demos from like the reels, right? In like if we take the vernacular from like the film industry, we have always been creating not real commercials for demos. You know, some people choose to use real brands and stuff like that. Um, I usually try to avoid using real brands because if I did an ad for you for like Fanta, and then like Pepsi came along and they heard your demo and they're like, oh, well, we don't like Fanta. I don't know. They might own Fanta. I don't know where the party lines are drawn in the soda world, but so I try to find like a fake entity that we can use, an imaginary entity. That way we're not like coming up against a competitor with a demo you did for a company that they don't like or something like that. So
I never thought
yeah,
about
from
that.
yeah, I to me it paints a neutral picture in their head, right? Instead of it being like this particular brand. And also when we do that, sometimes we can kind of hit a broader target for like a single vignette. Sometimes it depends on the industry, but I've never done like a specific demo where we were replicating actual commercials, uh, or you know, if we were cutting together somebody's commercials which has already been produced, that's just a reel. And so that shows what you have done. And for me, the kind of the split in that is a reel is what you have done. That's
Right.
work that you have done. Demo is what you can do. Those things those things might not always connect. Like I said, you don't know who's going to hire you for what. So, and that's been one of the biggest things with seeing people diversify and get hired outside of their quote unquote industries that they did for, you know, many, many years. But a demo is a place for us to do anything that we think will make you shine in a positive way. And it's you know, regardless of the industry. To me, it's regardless of the vertical. I think there are things that we want to hit inside of a demo that we want to make sure that we have, kind of our bread and butter stuff. But beyond that, again, all of that is tailored to you as an individual talent.
I love it. All right. So, can you tell us how much you charge for a demo? And maybe that varies.
It does. Yeah, it absolutely does vary, and it kind of depends. Like if we were doing an audiobook demo where you were kind of reading different monologues and stuff like that, the production burden is very, very light. A lot of times we're not demoing anything in immersive for audiobook. We're really just focusing on your voice, hitting maybe those different styles of reads, and showing your dramatic, your comedic, your romantic, your documentary, all that kind of good stuff. But you know, really, I think, forgive me, I just totally lost my train of thought. You're going to have to edit this. You're asking me how much I charge. Sorry.
Deep breath.
um, deep breath. Yeah. So sorry. You're asking me how much I charge. So for doing something that's fairly simple, like an audiobook demo, where we're really just focusing on your voice, it would probably be, very, very inexpensive. And then moving up to a character demo, which is some of the most involved stuff that we could possibly do. Those get up into the usually in the thousands of dollars, like depending on what you're needing to do, 1,500, 2,500, and
Hmm.
on up from there. But that's really a reflection of the amount of work that it takes me to do to accomplish it. So
Right.
if you need somebody to help you with an audiobook demo to help you create that, that's probably like hundreds of dollars. And I would just have to talk through the specifics of that. But I always like doing a project rate. That way we both agree up front that you're getting stuff. I don't do anything by the hour when we're
Right.
creating a demo, because there I'm working until the job's done regardless, and it's really on me to do the best job and quote you the best price that I possibly can. So, but
So
yes,
maybe
it
for,
is very
yeah,
depends on what I'm doing.
seems like that's pretty standard across the board. Like a commercial demo, which we know everybody pretty much needs a commercial demo. And I guess unless they're only doing audiobooks. So what would you charge for a commercial demo?
So for like a typical minute long commercial demo, I could see that being anywhere from like uh we're probably like, at the very least, we're in the $750 range. And if it needs to be really wide, really we're looking at how many vignettes we're doing.
Hmm.
I could say that it might break 1,000 if you come to me and it's like, I need a pharmaceutical script, I need a retail script, I need a this, and now we're stacking 10 scripts to make sure that we get 7 for your demo. That's a little bit different. But if
Hmm.
you're targeted, or you're like, I just need to specifically hit this section, it'll be there. But we're probably in the high hundreds there for a commercial demo. So
Okay. So last question. Actually, I have two more. Okay.
okay.
Maybe not. I think I'm like going through my questions to make sure I hit them all because we kind of hopped around. Oh,
I'm
what do
sorry.
you think about the whole concept of like the separation of church and state when it comes to demos? And I realize that you don't coach and then do a demo, so this is more your opinion.
Mhm.
There's this idea that maybe coaches should just coach and demo producers should just produce. So someone goes and works with a coach until they feel like they're ready, and then they go somebody different. So the same person isn't making all the decisions about what happens. What are your thoughts on that?
You stumbled onto what I believe is the crux of the situation, just in the end of your own question. At
Hmm.
least it is for me. So there is a thing in the creative world, and it is probably one of the most valuable things. And it's not something that you can always get for yourself, and that is objectivity. Being able to have that production mind and step outside of something is a big deal. Now, I know some very talented coaches who are also very talented producers, and I would absolutely hand people that I loved and cared about off to them because I trust their skills. Again, it's a little bit dependent on who it is, but
Hmm.
where I kind of fall on the side of, um, you know, I'm not trying to take anything away from the coaches, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the engineers that and producers that also coach. But to me, um, there's almost a benefit to having that objectivity when it comes time to, because as your coach, I will see you doing things, and even I might be trying to push you in a particular direction to get the best out of you. But I want to see what that looks like when the coach isn't there,
Mhm.
because they're not going to be there. You have to take that knowledge that they gave you and you have to carry it with you and internalize it and process it, and then it becomes a part of you. But I think the me not thinking from a coaching standpoint, well, I had 10 people read this one particular script for um for this new car that's coming out, right? And in the 10 people that were in my class, these 3 people read it the best. Well, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have retail in your demo. And so I think there's just a nice kind of separation there. If it were me, I'll say this: I would want somebody separate, because in every instance where I've created my own art, when I was, we were doing composition and music for radio and stuff like that, having just that peer review before it just goes out the door and becomes a thing that represents you is so valuable. And so, like I
Mhm.
said, I know people who do both. I can and will recommend people that do both. If it's my money and it's my art that I'm dealing with, I have found in my life that it's been better to have that separation there. And also, it just opens you up to a whole nother field of like contacts and acquaintances that this person knows. So you're kind of also networking and spreading your branches out a little bit farther as
Yeah.
well, one would hope. So yeah, for me, I fall on the side of keeping it separate, but that's a totally personal decision, and I think there are people out there that can absolutely do both.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. All right. So, last question for real this time.
Okay,
Why should I speak for a living, but I can't always make my words come out.
I need to
Why
take a drink too.
Good, take a drink and I'll take a breath. Why should a talent choose to work with you specifically?
The best thing that I can say about myself is, which I hate doing, but uh, I am a very versatile producer. And as such, I can definitely help you create something that's going to, again, reflect you in the best light. And at the end of the day, the only ego that I have in any of this is making you sound the best that you can possibly sound. Um, I don't need accolades for myself. I just like when people are happy and proud and confident in the work that we've made together, and that they are excited to present that to the world. And uh, that's the most important thing.
Awesome. So, where can people find out more about how to work with you?
You can find me. I am always answering all manner of questions on TikTok. It comes in waves, and I love it. It's like little problems to be, or little puzzles to be solved. I get to help people and just talk through kind of roadblocks for them. You can also find me at aarondoesaudio.com, or reach out to me via email at aarondoesaudio@gmail.com.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate your time and your insights into the industry.
Thank you very much, Alicia. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks.